Creation. The first day in the beginning God created heaven and earth. The earth was without form and empty, with darkness on the face of the depths, but God's Spirit moved on the water's surface. God said, "There shall be light," and light came into existence. God saw that the light was good, and God divided between the light and the darkness. God named the light day, and the darkness he named night. It was evening and it was morning, one day. The second day God said, "There shall be a sky in the middle of the water, and it shall divide between water and water." God thus made the sky, and it separated the water below the sky from the water above the sky. It remained that way. God named the sky heaven. It was evening and it was morning, a second day. The third day God said, "The waters under the heavens shall be gathered to one place, and dry land shall be seen." It happened. God named the dry land earth, and the gatherings of water he named seas. God saw that it was good. God said, "The earth shall send forth vegetation. Seed-bearing plants and fruit trees that produce their own kinds of fruits with seeds shall be on the earth." It happened. The earth sent forth vegetation, plants bearing their own kinds of seeds, and trees producing fruits containing their own kinds of seeds. God saw that it was good. It was evening and it was morning, a third day. The fourth day God said, "There shall be lights in the heavenly sky to divide between day and night. They shall serve as omens and define festivals, days and years. They shall be lights in the heavenly sky, to shine on the earth." It happened. God thus made the two large lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the smaller light to rule the night. He also made the stars. God placed them in the heavenly sky to shine on the earth, to rule by day and by night, and to divide between the light and the darkness. God saw that it was good. It was evening and it was morning, the fourth day. The fifth day God said, "The water shall teem with swarms of living creatures. Flying creatures shall fly over the land, on the face of the heavenly sky." God thus created the great sea monsters, along with every particular species of living thing that crawls, with which the waters teem, and every particular species of winged flying creature. God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and become many, and fill the waters of the seas. Let the flying creatures multiply on the land." It was evening and it was morning, the fifth day. The sixth day God said, "The earth shall bring forth particular species of living creatures, particular species of livestock, land animals, and beasts of the earth." It happened. God thus made particular species of beasts of the earth, particular species of livestock, and particular species of animals that walk the land. God saw that it was good. God said, "Let us make man with our image and likeness. Let him dominate the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the livestock animals, and all the earth, and every land animal that walks the earth." God thus created man with his image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female he created them. God blessed them. God said to them, "Be fertile and become many. Fill the land and conquer it. Dominate the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and every beast that walks the land." God said, "Behold, I have given you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the earth, and every tree that has seed-bearing fruit. It shall be to you for food. For every beast of the field, every bird of the sky, and everything that walks the land, that has in it a living soul, all plant vegetation shall be food." It remained that way. God saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. It was evening and it was morning, the sixth day. The Sabbath, heaven and earth, and all their components, were thus completed. With the seventh day, God finished all the work that he had done. He thus ceased on the seventh day from all the work that he had been doing. God blessed the seventh day, and he declared it to be holy, for it was on this day that God ceased from all the work that he had been creating so that it would continue to function. Man, the first sin. These are the chronicles of heaven and earth when they were created, on the day God completed earth and heaven. All the wild shrubs did not yet exist on the earth, and all the wild plants had not yet sprouted. This was because God had not brought rain on the earth, and there was no man to work the ground. A mist rose up from the earth, and it watered the entire surface of the ground. God formed man out of dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils a breath of life. Man thus became a living creature. God planted a garden to the east. There he placed the man that he had formed. God made grow out of the ground every tree that is pleasant to look at and good to eat, including the tree of life in the middle of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The river flowed out of Eden to water the garden. From there it divided and became 4 major rivers. The name of the first is Expulsion. It surrounds the entire land of Havilah where gold is found. The gold of that land is especially good. Also found there are pearls and precious stones. The name of the second river is Jordan. It surrounds the land of Cush. The name of the third river is the Tigris, which flows to the east of Assyria. The fourth river is the Euphrates. God took the man and placed him in the garden of Eden to work it and watch it. God gave the man a commandment, saying, "You may definitely eat from every tree of the garden. But from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, do not eat, for on the day you eat from it, you will definitely die." God said, "It is not good for man to be alone. I will make a compatible helper for him." God had formed every wild beast and every bird of heaven out of the ground. He now brought them to the man to see what he would name each one. Whatever the man called each living thing would remain its name. A man named every livestock animal and bird of the sky, as well as all the wild beasts. But the man did not find a helper who was compatible for him. God then made the man fall into a deep state of unconsciousness, and he slept. He took one of his ribs and closed the flesh in its place. God built the rib that he took from the man into a woman, and he brought her to the man. The man said, "Now this is bone from my bones and flesh from my flesh. She shall be called woman Isha because she was taken from man Ish." A man shall therefore leave his father and mother and be united with his wife, and they shall become one flesh. The man and his wife were both naked, but they were not embarrassed by one another. Man, the first sin, the serpent, was the most cunning of all the wild beasts that God had made. The serpent asked the woman, "Did God really say that you may not eat from any of the trees in the garden?" The woman replied to the serpent, "We may eat from the fruit of the trees in the garden. But of the fruit of the tree that is in the middle of the garden, God said, 'Do not eat it, and do not even touch it, or else you will die.'" The serpent said to the woman, "You will certainly not die. Really, God knows that on the day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." The woman saw that the tree was good to eat and desirable to the eyes, and that the tree was attractive as a means to gain intelligence. She took some of its fruit and ate it. She also gave some to her husband, and he ate it. The eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized that they were naked. They sewed together fig leaves, and made themselves loincloths. They heard God's voice moving about in the garden with the wine of the day. The man and his wife hid themselves from God among the trees in the garden. God called to the man, and he said, "Where are you trying to hide?" "I heard your voice in the garden," replied the man, "and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." God asked, "Who told you that you are naked? Did you eat from the tree which I commanded you not to eat?" The man replied, "The woman that you gave to be with me, she gave me what I ate from the tree." God said to the woman, "What is this that you have done?" The woman replied, "The serpent seduced me and I ate it." God said to the serpent, "Because you did this, cursed are you more than all the livestock and all the wild beasts. On your belly you shall crawl, and dust you shall eat, all the days of your life. I will plant hatred between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will strike you in the head, and you will strike him in the heel." The woman cursed to the woman, he said, "I will greatly increase your anguish and your pregnancy. It will be with anguish that you will give birth to children. Your passion will be to your husband, and he will dominate you." Man's curse to Adam, he said, "You listened to your wife, and ate from the tree regarding which I specifically gave you orders, saying, 'Do not eat from it.' The ground will therefore be cursed because of you. You will derive food from it with anguish all the days of your life. It will bring forth thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the grass of the field. By the sweat of your brow you will eat bread. Finally you will return to the ground, for it was from the ground that you were taken. You are dust, and to dust you shall return." A man named his wife Eve, because she was the mother of all life. God made leather garments for Adam and his wife, and he clothed them. The expulsion from Eden. God said, "Man has now become like one of us in knowing good and evil. Now he must be prevented from putting forth his hand and also taking from the tree of life. He can eat it and live forever." God banished man from the Garden of Eden, to work the ground from which he was taken. He drove away the man, and stationed the cherubim at the east of Eden, along with the revolving sword blade, to guard the path of the tree of life. Cain and Abel. The man knew his wife Eve. She conceived and gave birth to Cain. She said, "I have gained a man with God." She gave birth again, this time to his brother Abel. Abel became a shepherd, while Cain was a worker of the soil. And ere it ended, Cain brought some of his crops as an offering to God. Abel also offered some of the firstborn of his flock, from the fattest ones. God paid heed to Abel and his offering, but to Cain and his offering, he paid no heed. Cain became very furious and depressed. God said to Cain, "Why are you so furious? Why are you depressed? If you do good, will there not be special privilege? And if you do not do good, sin is crouching at the door. It lusts after you, but you can dominate it." Cain said something to his brother Abel. Then, when they happened to be in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel, and killed him. God asked Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" "I do not know," replied Cain. "Am I my brother's keeper?" God said, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is screaming to me from the ground. Now you are cursed from the ground that opened its mouth to take your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer give you of its strength. You will be restless and isolated in the world." Cain said, "My sin is too great to bear. Behold, today you have banished me from the face of the earth, and I am to be hidden from your face. I am to be restless and isolated in the world, and whoever finds me will kill me." God said to him, "Indeed, whoever kills Cain will be punished 7 times as much." God placed a mark on Cain so that whoever would find him would not kill him. Cain went out from before God's presence. He settled in the land of Nod, to the east of Eden. Cain knew his wife. She conceived and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was building the city, and he named the city Enoch, after his son. Enoch had a son Irad. Irad had a son Mehujael. Mehujael had a son Methuselah. Methuselah had a son Lamech. Lamech married 2 women. The first one's name was Ada, and the second one's name was Silla. Ada gave birth to Yabal. He was the ancestor of all those who live in tents and keep herds. His brother's name was Uval. He was the ancestor of all who play the harp and flute. Silla also had a son, Tubal-Cain, a maker of all copper and iron implements. Tubal-Cain's sister was Naamah. Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Silla, "Hear my voice, wives of Lamech, listen to my speech. I have killed a man by wounding him and a child by bruising him. If Cain shall be revenged 7 times, then for Lamech it shall be 77 times." Adam knew his wife again, and she gave birth to a son. She named him Seth, because God has granted Shaphni other offspring in place of Abel, whom Cain had killed. The son was also born to Seth, and Seth named him Enosh. It was then initiated to pray with God's name. The first and second generations. This is the book of the Chronicles of Adam. On the day that God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. He created them male and female. He blessed them and named them man Adam on the day that they were created. Adam lived 130 years, and he had a son in his likeness and form. He named him Seth. Adam lived 800 years after he had Seth, and he had sons and daughters. All the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. The third generation Seth lived 105 years, and he had a son Enosh. Seth lived 807 years after he had Enosh, and he had sons and daughters. All of Seth's days were 912 years, and he died. The fourth generation Enosh lived 90 years, and he had a son Kenan. Enosh lived 815 years after he had Kenan, and he had sons and daughters. All of Enosh's days were 905 years, and he died. The fifth generation Kenan lived 70 years, and he had a son Mahalalel. Kenan lived 840 years after he had Mahalalel, and he had sons and daughters. All of Kenan's days were 910 years, and he died. The sixth generation Mahalalel lived 65 years, and he had a son Yerd. Mahalalel lived 830 years after he had Yerd, and he had sons and daughters. All of Mahalalel's days were 895 years, and he died. The seventh generation Yerd lived 162 years, and he had a son Enoch. Yerd lived 800 years after he had Enoch, and he had sons and daughters. All of Yerd's days were 962 years, and he died. The eighth generation Enoch lived 65 years, and he had a son Methuselah. Enoch walked with God for 300 years after he had Methuselah, and he had sons and daughters. All of Enoch's days were 365 years. Enoch walked with God, and he was no more, because God had taken him. The ninth generation Methuselah lived 187 years, and he had a son Lamech. Methuselah lived 782 years after he had Lamech, and he had sons and daughters. All of Methuselah's days were 969 years, and he died. The 10th generation Lamech lived 182 years, and he had a son. He named him Noah, saying, "This one will bring us relief from our work and the anguish of our hands, from the soil that God has cursed." Lamech lived 595 years after he had Noah, and he had sons and daughters. All of Lamech's days were 777 years, and he died. Noah's children and the Titans. Noah was 500 years old, and Noah fathered Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Noah's children and the Titans. Man began to increase on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them. The sons of God saw that the daughters of man were good, and they took themselves wives from whomever they chose. God said, "My spirit will not continue to judge man forever, since he is nothing but flesh. His days shall be 120 years. The Titans were on the earth in those days and also later. The sons of God had come to the daughters of man and had fathered them. The Titans were the mightiest ones who ever existed, men of renown. The decree against humanity. God saw that man's wickedness on earth was increasing. Every impulse of his innermost thought was only for evil, all day long. God regretted that he had made man on earth, and he was pained to his very core. God said, "I will obliterate humanity that I have created from the face of the earth, man, livestock, land animals, and birds of the sky. I regret that I created them." But Noah found favor in God's eyes.